Fit Family Podcast presents a fitness corporate presentation for you and your business and your corporation that you can run anytime you want to. You have my permission. You know, I've done presentations for schools. I've done hundreds of televised presentations, both for products and just to promote fitness in general. You can just go to YouTube and search my name. I actually have presentations where I actually have hair. I am completely bald now, but I have had every African American hairstyle that you can think of, from flat top fade to Jerry curl. But I digress. I've never turned down a school. I love doing school presentations. I used to love when the firefighters came to the school and they would climb up ladders and, show off the fire trucks, which are still incredibly cool. And by the time they left, everybody wanted to be a firefighter. So I love going to schools and doing fitness presentations. One of the most memorable ones, I went back to my high school, Walsingham Academy, which is in Williamsburg, Virginia. And they had about 600 students in the round, and I got a chance to present to all of the students at one time, and it was awesome. I hope by the end of the presentation, they all wanted to go out and become trainers or coaches, but I digress. The main thing is I love preaching the fitness message, whether it's one-on-one to my clients or one-on-two, one-on-three, one-on-four, because we train up to 4 people with our partnership training, or in groups like Rotary that I used to belong to. I used to love presenting in front of a group of Rotarians because I think a Rotary group is probably the most unbelievably intelligent and experienced group of people you can speak in front of. And I've seen some Rotary presentations done by ex-senators and congressional leaders, and I tell you, it's an impressive group. And I had the privilege of being a member of Rotary for about 5 years. I even served 1 year as their sergeant at arms, and it was great because it was basically a ceremonial position, but I was in charge of collecting brags and commercials. So if you talked about your kid, that was a brag. So that was $5. If you talked about your business, that was considered a commercial. That was $10. Now we're talking about, this 15, years ago. So that's when, 5 or $10, it meant something. And it was so funny because at the end of the meeting, when the president would dismiss the meeting, if we hadn't collected most of the brags and commercials, he'd go, "Well, I think we need to hear from our sergeant at arms." And I'm like, "We do?" And he goes, "Yes, I think you have some to present." I'm like, I do. He knew I would do my best impersonation of a mob boss to try to get the brags and commercials. So I would stand up at the lectern and I go, "Okay, let me tell you something. I want you to raise your right hand." And everybody would play along. They'd raise their right hand. And I go, "Let me tell you, if I don't collect all my brags and commercials, the fees and the monies that are due, maybe you won't be able to hold up your right hand so easily next time I ask you. Capiche?" So everybody would put their hand down and everybody would get a little chuckle. And I would get my brags and commercial money though. So it was really cool. But I love preaching the fitness message. And as you can tell, I have no problem carrying a conversation, even with an imaginary audience, because I don't know who's going to listen to this podcast or watch this YouTube video. Let me start with a mission trip to Costa Rica. I actually went on a mission trip to an orphanage. In case you haven't heard any of my other podcasts, I was adopted from an orphanage in Frankfurt, Germany. And it was an unbelievable experience. I had great parents. I consider the couple that adopted me to be my God-given parents. And it's funny, growing up, we never used adoptive parents or biological parents and that sort of terminology. I figured I had to become a person, so God hooked that up. And I do have what I've termed a birth mother, but my parents will always be Hattie and James Dothard. And wow, it turned out great for me. So I've always tried to give back. We actually have a unbelievable foster daughter that lives with us, and her name is Wendy. And it's just been a true blessing in addition to our family. And she's as much of a daughter of our family as anybody could have. And I've always wanted to give back to the system that helped me. So when I thought of doing a mission trip, I'm like, oh, maybe I can find a mission trip that's going to an orphanage. And I did through this organization called Global X. They actually had a mission trip going to an orphanage through my church. And there were about 30 high schoolers, and I think there were 4 or 5 chaperones, and I was one of the chaperones. I think one person was actually employed by the church. And we took a group of high schoolers to Costa Rica. And, the high schoolers were kind of unlikely heroes. I don't know how you were in high school, but I was not the type of high school student, even though, I buckled down and got my little C average so I could still play my sports. And I was a decent athlete, but I was nothing remarkable. I think any high schooler that donates part of their summer vacation to do a mission trip is an unbelievable human being. And so it was really special to work with this group of kids. Now, they were typical high schoolers. They actually did get in trouble one time. And since I was the only one on the mission trip, ironically, that had kids. So when they got in trouble, they're like, Mr. Robert, could you speak to them? And I'm like, oh, yes, I can. And I told them, I got them together. I'm like, hey, guys, you're the most impressive thing about this trip. And they had done something like, cause noise late at night, like typical high schoolers. I mean, nothing really bad, but they needed a good talking to. And I said, hey, I'm a volunteer. The worst thing that can happen to me is I can't go on another mission trip. But the lady that's employed by the church, it could affect her job. So I want everybody at some point, the remainder of this trip, to apologize to her. And I do not want to have to talk to you young people again, because you're remarkable. Start, being remarkable, and don't take it off the remarkable setting. Rip off the knob. And of course, we didn't have any more issues with them, and they continued to be the remarkable group that we took on a mission trip. Another thing that happened on the mission trip, we had this orientation. Is before we ever met the kids in the orphanage, they wanted to teach us where the kids came from. And I don't know how you are, but it breaks my heart when anything happens to a child. I'm like almost welling up now just thinking about the orientation meeting, because I was bawling. They were talking about, kids that lose parents, kids that are left alone, kids that, like one young girl was left alone by her parents to go pick, I believe, coffee beans. And like a young man, I think he was 15 or 16, and I don't think it was a SA situation, but I think it was they had intercourse, and by the time the parents came back, the 12-year-old's pregnant. And there's no system in place to even prosecute the boy if that was even a thing, because it could have just been 2 kids left alone experimenting. And let's face it, if we let our kids do whatever they wanted to, there'd be a lot more teenage pregnancies out there. Agreed? So it broke my heart. And I remember the guy doing the orientation, he kind of looked at me, he goes, sir, are you going to be okay to go to this orphanage? Because you're a mess right now. And I'm like, dude, I just can't take stories about, things happening to kids. And there were, some of the kids were victims, and just in the worst ways you can imagine. I guess most people know that human trafficking is the biggest form of trafficking in the world. And kids are a big part of that. And I remember when we first went to the orphanage, there was this wall with razor wire. And I'm like, what on earth? It looked like a prison. And I go, please tell me that's to keep people out and not to keep the kids in. He goes, sir, everything in this orphanage is a commodity. We have medicine. We have fresh food and water. And we have children. Again, the children being a valuable commodity that can be stolen. So it really broke my heart, and it was just one of those moving things that I'll never forget, that orientation meeting. And then I had to find my role on the mission trip. So the first day I painted with these high school kids, and I did the bathroom because they said the bathroom was kind of a confined space, so they wanted one of the leaders to do the bathroom because the fumes of the paint would be really strong. So it is a very tropical area, and so the paint was this oil-based paint. It was very thick and it was very strong. And I got high as a kite. I couldn't stop laughing. They got the biggest kick out of me, you know. And I kind of got the munchies. I remember eating like 20 cookies at lunch. So it was crazy. But anyway, the next day they're like, okay, well, you can't paint anymore. So they put me in the gym and they just started sending groups of kids to me. And I had found my role. Oh, I taught them how to do the conga line. I had this game where me and another high school kid, he was a football player, and we just lifted kids up and put them down for like an hour. After that, neither one of us could feel our spine. But I found my role. It was just being in this little gymnasium space. And it was just this play area that was not even enclosed. It was kind of it looked like an extended carport. But they would bring groups of kids out and we played tag, we played, all these games. And it was just awesome. And I found my role. So before I go into my fitness part of this presentation, let me cover one more thing. I'm going to give generic fitness advice because I don't know you and I don't know your situation. And one thing I'm going to cover right off the bat is I'm not going to cover disease. So I'm going to say barring disease, blah, 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 whatever my point is. Because I know I have Hashimoto's, which is where my thyroid is attacked by my body. And it does affect my energy level. It affects my weight. So you may have a condition or be on a medication or be postmenopausal or whatever that may affect your weight. You may be type 1 diabetes that affects your weight. You may be type 2 diabetes because of your weight. So there are a lot of diseases that I'm not going to cover the scenario because this podcast would be like 10-part series, an hour each, and that would only scratch the surface, I'm sure. So I'm just going to say the fitness advice I'm going to give in this podcast is barring disease. I'm going to take disease out of the equation. And it's because it's one of those things I can't regulate. I remember when I was diagnosed with cholesterol, which is my other issue because I have perfect health other than my thyroid and my cholesterol. And the doctor said, oh, well, your cholesterol is approaching, dangerous numbers. I'm like, oh, I can control it. And I worked out and I ate great. And I lowered it like 1 or 2 points. I went on a statin. It regulated my cholesterol. And I'll be on my thyroid medication and my cholesterol medication forever. So let's just say we're going to take disease out of the equation. All right. I'm going to give you the ABCs of fitness, okay? But first of all, I'm going to cover the biggest thing that I found in the fitness community that is probably the biggest issue for, I think, the American population specifically. Obesity or being overweight. You don't even have to be morbidly obese, although a great percentage of Americans are. Let's just say you have 10, 20, 30 pounds that you've gained over the years. And it normally goes something like this. I was very active in high school. I go to college. I gain a freshman 15. I get out of college. I may even be active. I may play tennis in the local, community or still do my little workout and jogging. But when I get my first job, I gain another few pounds because I'm working 9 to 5 and I'm sitting around a lot. Then I get engaged and I get married. Then there's that love weight where you're whining and dining. Before you know it, you're 20 pounds overweight, right? And nothing's really happened. That's bad, right? And then you may have a health issue. And that could be another 10 pounds. I know my wife gained 50 to 60 pounds with each of the pregnancies. And I know after the first pregnancy, I always joke that's the only time she's ever listened to me in our 26 years of marriage. Because she's like, I want this weight gone there, trainer dude. And I'm like, okay, well, you have to listen to me and do what I tell you. And she did lose the weight. And it was awesome. I don't know if I pulled that off with the second one, but she is still within, 5 or 10 pounds of her weight that she was when we got married. And we've been married 26 years. So there's no issues on the fitness front with the significant other. Now, let's go back to obesity. I can cure obesity with one word. You ready? I'm going to get real close to the microphone to make sure you hear it. The one word is math. Okay, I'm going to repeat it. Math. It's easy once you start doing the math, okay? And you're thinking, oh, you don't know me. You don't know my situation. I'm different. No, you're not. You're not that special. And I can prove it through an incident where I actually was on a show and I talked about, a mental image of a prisoner of war. And they cut the segment out because it was a very dark way to make my point. But if you have a mental image of a prisoner of war, it's going to be someone who's emaciated, someone who's gaunt and loses weight because they're not being fed properly, a lot of times being worked. And if I were to follow you around and slap things out of your hand that you shouldn't be eating or drinking and have you eat an impeccable diet and was able to exercise with you several times a week and you didn't have the opportunity to cheat, I bet you would lose weight. I would put my annual salary on it. And I remember there was a movie where I think it was a segment within a movie called The Outer Limits, and they were trying to get these people to quit smoking. And they said, well, if we catch you, we're going to cut off part of your pinky finger. And he's like, ha ha ha, kind of joking, goes, okay. And he snuck a cigarette like on the highway, and the pinky finger wasn't going to come from the guy that smoked. It would come from their spouse. So at the end of this segment, he's telling this story about how he went to this place and, they said they were going to cut off the pinky finger of my spouse. And you hear one of the ladies kind of nervously laughing as she raised her wine glass. You could see her pinky finger had been severed. And it really creepy story. But my point is, if I could follow you around 24/7 and you weren't allowed to eat anything inappropriate or overeat, and I was able to supervise your workouts and make sure you did plenty of activity, I could bring your weight down. Again, barring disease. Full stop. So math is the key to weight loss. And just like with that orphanage, where nothing, when something happens to a kid, it just breaks my heart. Nothing breaks my heart more than morbid obesity. And let me tell you, I had the worst time closing or getting started on a program than people that are morbidly obese. I can't tell you how many 300-pound or plus people I've walked out of my studio. And thank God my mother-in-law told me something I'll never forget. She goes, Robert, they've been obese or overweight their entire adult life. You've had your one session to try to convince them not to be. And it was awesome. It's what I needed to hear because, man, I stink at closing obese people. And if weight is an issue for you, I don't care if it's 5 or 10 pounds, and it's always been an issue. By the end of this podcast, you're going to have the golden ticket. I'm going to give you the key to losing weight. And it's the simple ABCs of exercise. First, we're going to cover A, activity. I don't know who's making bootleg Ozempic or who's taking Ozempic outside the care of their physician for, life-threatening, weight loss. But I would like to take them out back and whip their country behinds because it's horrible and it's dangerous. The obesity epidemic in this country cannot be cured by big pharma. It starts with activity. I always ask people, when was the last time you were in the shape you want to be in? Oh, I ran track in college, or I remember, my wife and I were doubles partners in Alta and we practiced and we played. And in other words, normally they tell me about an activity. Oh, we go hiking or we go mountain biking, and they tell me about an activity. That's why I love road races. They have the Peachtree Road Race every year, and I've already got my registration for the Peachtree Road Race, which is a world's largest 10K. It's held in Atlanta every year, and I already have my number guaranteed. I bought it last year because I love the fact that 50 to 60,000 people are running down Peachtree, all shapes, all sizes, all ages, and I am in heaven because all those people are doing something healthy for their bodies. And most of them do some sort of preparation for that. They'll start walking because I would say a third, if not more, of the participants walk the entire 10K. Okay, it's not a race in particular. I mean, they do bring in people that are world-class runners, but they often they have finished the race before my group or many of the groups have even started that are normal runners. And it's funny, my mile time has gone up almost a minute per decade. So in my 40s, it was 30 minutes. In my 50s, it went to 31 and 32. Now I'm in my 60s, and I easily do a 33-minute 3-mile run. No, more like a 38-minute. So it's like a 13-minute mile. So, yeah, but I love road races. But going back to my point of activity, normally when people tell me when they were in the best shapes of their lives, they tell me a story about some activity that they're getting involved with. Let me tell you the story I don't hear. Robert, I sat on my ass. I did nothing. I binge watched Netflix. I ate all sorts of food, drank all sorts of beverages, and I just got at my ideal weight. All right? Does that sound sensible? Does that sound believable? Of course it doesn't. It's nonsense. And let me tell you, people sit with me, and I love when, it's the beginning of the year and I get the New Year's resolution people, and I love it. Oh, I'm going to eat like I've never eaten before. I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to work out. I'm like, okay, well, that's great. Did you make that kind of promise last year? Huh? Did you make that kind of promise last year? My guess is you did. And the fact that you didn't accomplish it last year puts us at this meeting today. So come on, folks. You're going to have to find an activity. The good news is the activity doesn't have to be running. The activity doesn't have to be a sport. Okay, so for every parent out there, listen to me carefully. Your child does not have to play a sport to be fit and to be healthy. They're going to need help on the nutritional front because they're not going to get that from their friends. Okay, their friends are going to want to do like my friends. They're going to want to eat fast food. They're going to want to get something quick that tastes good and has a ton of sugar and a ton of fat. So that's what I ate growing up. I mean, McDonald's was like a treat. We only stopped at McDonald's if we won the game. If we lost, we had to go home and eat. It's almost like a punishment. And God bless my mother, rest her soul, not the best cook in the world. And I used to love when I didn't like what she had made. I'd sit at a table, but I don't like this. And she'd take a piece of saran wrap and put it over the plate, put it in the fridge, goes, you'll love it tomorrow. And no truer words were ever spoken. Oh my God, I loved Hattie Dalton. I was a big old fat mama's boy. But let me tell you what, she could bake. German chocolate cakes, cinnamon rolls, my mother could bake. So if she's looking down from heaven, go, you never went hungry, did you? Chill, Mom. You're baking more than made up for your lack of cooking skills. So I guess baking is cooking technically, yeah. So she could bake her butt off. So Mom, love the baking, not the cooking so much. Unless it was a Hamburger Helper. Whoever came up with Hamburger Helper, I'd like to give you a big old fat hug because that saved me many nights. But I have totally digressed. Okay, so the first thing is activity. And it can be as simple as walking. And you don't have to do like 9 hours a day. You don't have to do 7 days a week. Let's say you're not doing anything right now, okay? If you walked a couple of days a week, and if you train with someone like me, doesn't have to be me, someone like me, or even if you pick up a workout online, if you email me, I'll send you an ebook that'll show you how to work out. But the information is out there. Say you walk a couple of days a week and you do an online workout, and then you eat better. Say you cut out, like I cut out regular sugar in my coffee and I added a non-sugar sugar, or a sweetener like stevia or Splenda. Now, am I promoting those sweeteners? No, but it cut calories out of my diet every day. instead of each cup of coffee being 200 calories or more, depending on how much sugar I put in it, it's, 0 calorie sweetener. And will there be a health consequence to pay down the road? I don't really know. Okay, because with all the sugar I was taking in, I'm sure there would have been more of a danger taking in all that sugar than it would be all the dangers from the sugar-free stevia or Splenda. The second thing is body weight. A lot of people feel like they have to go out and build a home gym. Or even if they're going to have a home gym, they have to put thousands of dollars of equipment. I'm about to do a TV show called Atlanta & Company with my youngest son, and we're going to take less than $300 of equipment onto the show. A TRX bands, we're going to take some dumbbells and some tubing and a flexiball. And all of that's under a few $100s. And it's a home gym. I've trained many clients virtually with that amount of equipment and had great success. But your body weight, just doing your body weight. I used to watch this show called Locked Up, and it was my guilty pleasure. I have never been incarcerated and would like to keep that streak alive for more than my 63 years I've been on the planet. But these guys were locked up, and they were doing pull-ups and push-ups and planks and all these workouts in their cell, and they were incredibly buff. Now, did they have a lot of time to work out? Yes, they did. Were they incredibly fit? Yes. So you can use your body weight, and you can use just a few $100s worth of equipment or a couple of $100s worth of equipment and not have to break the bank to create a home gym. And I've had great success. So you have to find an activity. Walking is an amazing activity, and not walking the dog, a dedicated time to walk, preferably like after dinner. Take the whole family walking. 20 to 30 minutes would be outstanding. That would be a great start. And this is for people that aren't doing anything, okay? Now, it's the beginning of the year. A lot of people are probably joining gyms and going in, taking classes and, trying to do cardio. That's great. It's admirable. But come on, let's set up a system that's not dependent on the public gym that you're probably not going to frequent after the first 30 days. That's going to be in your home. We just had a snow event here in Atlanta. And one of the great things about having a home gym, I didn't miss any workouts. I did the Stairmaster, we have weights, and I was able to continue my workout. So having facilities at home, having a ball, having the bands, having the light dumbbells is going to help you use your body weight, and especially with a system like TRX. These are the exercise straps. And that's a brand of body weight straps. There are different brands, but if you search TRX, suspension training, I think it'll give you a good idea of what I'm talking about. The last thing of the ABCs from activity, A, body weight, B, C is consumables, what you eat or drink. I briefly talked about reducing the sugar, okay? But it's what I eat on a daily basis. And I love the story about going to Italy because, first of all, it cracks my wife up every time. But when I travel, I find a way to get my cardio in. So I do an hour a day, even if I have to wake up early. So if I have to be ready to do something, my wife goes, we need to be ready by 9 a.m. Well, I will wake up at 6:30, work out from 6:30, 7:30, make sure that I'm showered, changed, and I've eaten breakfast and I'm ready to go when my wife says we need to be ready to go. But even if I have to shave an hour out of my sleep, I will make sure I get an hour of cardio. And when we were in Italy, I gained a pound a day, even though I worked out an hour a day. So that lets you know how much food I ate and my unhealthy relationship with gelato. But my point is, even a professional trainer cannot eat and drink whatever they want and get away with it. So when I got back, I skipped dinner, I doubled my cardio, and within a week, I had lost the weight, which really reinforces my point. It's math. I reduce my calories, I increase my burn off. And when I did these contests, I did the Biggest Loser with the NBC affiliate here in Atlanta. It was actually called Biggest Loser Moms Edition. And it was a franchise sold here in Atlanta to the NBC affiliate. And it was great training the ladies because I said, you're going to lose weight. And then there's going to be that time when your body fights back and you're going to do the weigh-in. You're like, Robert, I'm not cheating. And your weight won't move. Your body will go through an adjustment period. So even if you follow my advice, there's going to come a time when you go to weigh in, or when you're doing what I also love to do, is check your size by putting on a clothes that you used to wear, maybe a couple of sizes smaller, or using a good old fashioned tape measure. Okay, because the scale sometimes is not the best indicator of health and fitness. But there's going to come a time when your body adjusts and it's going to be harder to make that shift. And that's when I really earn my pay as a professional trainer, because I'm able to take my clients to the next level, even though they've hit kind of a brick wall with their results. But what you eat and what you drink is critical. Some people even say, it's more like 70-30 or 80-20, with 20 being the exercise or 30% being the exercise. And for certain clients, I won't disagree with that, because you cannot outrun the fork. You can outrun a high calorie beverage. I give an example. I can train someone here in my studio and they can burn 300-400 calories. They can go out to their car and have a soft drink, or one of those drinks from Starbucks that have several hundred calories in them. And within minutes or seconds, depending on how fast they can get the beverage down, they can replace the calories that took them 45 minutes to an hour to burn. So you cannot outrun the fork. You cannot outrun the beverage. You cannot work out enough to compensate for bad nutritional habits, and that includes beverages. I try not to drink my calories. So do I drink diet soda or Coke Zero? Yes. But I try to eliminate the calories. That's why I took the fake sugar to put in my coffee, because I didn't want each cup of coffee, of the several cups that I drink, to be 200 calories each. And that's more calories I have to burn off. And I believe nobody hires a deconditioned trainer. So I have to maintain a high level of fitness. Even though I'm 63, I want to look fit, and I believe I do. So those are the ABCs of fitness. I would argue with anyone. If you want to, you can find me, robertdothler.com. You can email me. The number on that website is my direct number. So if for some reason you can't reach me on email, you can text or call me. But I can be reached, and I will argue that those 3 points will get you results, again, barring disease. Okay? And when it comes to giving fitness advice, I break it into 3 categories: free, reasonable, and personal. We've already talked about free. I will send you my ebook. It's one of those projects that I did that was a labor of love. It was one of my trainers and I, we did actually 2 books. And he actually secured a book deal for the second book, which is why I don't give it away, because I want him to be able to sell that book as much as he can. But the first book, once it was paid for, I told him, hey, I'm going to give this book away. If you come up with a book deal for the second book, we'll do the second book and you can sell it and make as much money as you can off that book, and it'll be no skin off my nose. Okay? Because he was a writer by trade. I'm a trainer, and I've been blessed with a good business for 30 years. So if he can make money off that book, God bless him, Godspeed. But I will send you my first book free of charge, because it gives you the fitness basics. Also online. Come on, I have 300 videos online, and you just search my name on YouTube, and they're free. And they're solid pieces of advice. Just like I pray this podcast is helpful to you. Not to try to make me your trainer, but for you to start doing something to make a difference in your health and fitness. Just like when I went on that mission trip, those kids are still orphans. They still are living in an orphanage. But hopefully through my visit and the high school kids' visit, it made their situation better for a week. They know that, hey, these people came in, they loved on us, they played with us, they helped the infrastructure of our orphanage, and they may not be, they're children, so they may not be thinking that as an adult rational thought, but we were. And I want this information to get out there so that people know that fitness is not something where their kid has to play a sport, that they can walk with their child, that they can control what their child consumes and not overeat, and make sure their child is active, okay? And make sure they're not drinking their calories, okay? And especially when they're at school, when they're out of the watchful eye of the parents. We used to have an account at our son's school, and we knew how much money he was spending on lunch. And if he was spending $7 for lunch, we knew he was buying a bunch of crap. Okay. Now, sometimes he'd be buying it for friends, but we're like, dude, eat what you bring or eat the healthy options they provide. And even if you're going to eat the unhealthy choices, that's only one meal. Okay. So if they have the pizza slices or the ice cream sandwich at school, I'm okay with that because they're going to eat before they go to school. I pray, because I know there's a lot of food insecurity in this country. And they're going to hopefully get a healthy meal from you at dinner and a healthy snack when they get home. Reasonable. I've charged $60 a session on average for, 20 years, as long as I've been a small business owner. And people go, how do you make it on that? Well, some of my clients have been with me for 5, 10 years. I have clients that have, 11, 12-year-old children. And when they started training with me, they didn't have kids. I've had clients that have been with me for years, and I'm so proud to say that because I'm not a cheap person to hang around. You do the math. 60 a session, a couple of times a week, that's almost $500 a month. Okay, and some of them have been with me over 10 years. Do the math. So I have to create value to make sure that they're getting value for that, because let me tell you, if they're not getting value, they're going to be an ex-client real quick. And I get fired for all sorts of reasons. I have clients that fire me because the traffic's bad, because the venue that I choose to have my facility. Years ago, I tried to do virtual training like I do now, and the technology it sucked. It was that, where it would be dropped, or it would be to the point where I had a hard time cueing the exercise. But now with FaceTime and Microsoft Teams and Zoom, virtual training is awesome. So if that's something I can do with you, man, I would jump at the opportunity. And I realize that, I'm in a city or a state that has, 6 to 8 million people, depending on how you slice it. Throughout my 30-year career, I've never had more than 100 clients. I would say between 60 and 80 clients at any one time. And sometimes that's with 5 or 6 trainers helping me. But folks, the main thing is a rising tide lifts all boats. And the reason I've been successful, I believe, is my message is pure. If you exercise and eat better, your health will improve. If you do the math on your caloric intake and you increase your burn off with an activity, you will lose weight. And over 30 years, I haven't found anybody to prove me wrong. So you won't be the first. So start finding an activity. I don't care if it's as simple as walking. Walking is amazing. I used to love when my weight loss competitions, the ladies, or even when I did Fit Nation with CNN, after a week, they come up and go, oh, I've only lost 1 or 2 pounds or 3 pounds. I'm like, do you realize by losing, there are 3,500 calories in a pound of fat. If you lose 2 or 3 pounds in a week, you've created a 10,000 calorie deficit almost. So that's unbelievable. That's an incredible accomplishment. And if you've never lost weight, I mean consistent weight over a number of years, you do not realize how hard that is. And if you want to know how to do that, I'm your guy. And if I'm not your guy, my formula is your formula. It will work. I promise you it will work. Find an activity. Don't be scared to use your body weight. Don't be scared to look online. Hey, what body weight exercises can I do that take 30 minutes in the morning? You're going to get so many videos. Some of them may have me in it. And then your consumables. You are what you eat. Exercise and proper nutrition, you're literally rebuilding your body at the cellular level. I love when I tell people I'm 63, I wake up, I don't have an ache or a pain. I hate saying that sometimes. It feels like I'm bragging, and, old age is going to take care of that, I'm sure. But, I feel so thankful that I've been blessed with good health, but I don't just sit around and go, well, I'm blessed with good health. I'm glad I don't, have all these ailments, or I'm not dying of obesity. I move every day. One thing my wife can say about me is I'm consistent about my workouts. Whether we're traveling to Nice, or whether we are jet lagged, or whether I'm here and the weather's bad, I'm going to make sure I get my exercise in, because that's what I preach. And I think that's the reason I pop out of bed. And I can't wait to start my next day. And I can't wait to give this message of health and fitness to people like you because I know it will work and I know you can do it. Okay? You just have to start. Just tomorrow, I'm going to do a 20 or 30-minute activity. If you've got access to a bike, ride a bike for them. When's the last time you rode a bike? Right? Ride a bike for 20 or 30 minutes. You know, my mother-in-law has one of those little ellipticals that go in front of the lazy boy recliner, and I joke, but you know what? God bless her. She's got an activity. She's 80 years old. She has a history of heart issues. So that may be the extent of what the doctor recommends for her. That's cool. She still has an activity. I love the fact that my wife is extremely busy, yet she finds a way. We fight over the same Stairmaster at the house, so that's why I very seldom work out at home. But you know, she does her cardio. We have the strength training equipment. She does her strength training because she's married to a fitness pro. Let me tell you, she's better about fitness than I am about technology because she's a techie, and nobody in my family allows me on their device. So she's a lot better with fitness than I am with tech. But folks, activity, using your body weight, watching what you consume. If you have to lose weight, it's math. And if I can help you, I would be honored. If not, find someone like me or find a video with someone like me. But start immediately. Don't put off good health. It's like having a winning lottery ticket. I hate those people like win the lottery and you don't find out for a month who they are because they've hired a lawyer and they've got their planners, but you don't even know if anybody's even won it, you know? And oh, somebody's announced that they've won it. And you're like, who is this person? Okay, who's my new best friend? No, just kidding. But I hate that. Let me tell you, good health is a lottery ticket. I mean, if I could put how I feel in the morning in a pill form, I'd be a quadrillionaire. I'd win the lottery because I'd be so wealthy. You want to feel this way, and you can. And if you haven't felt that way in years, you can get it back. And don't worry about if you don't play a sport. You can be active. Find something that floats your boat. Okay? So get active, use your body weight, watch what you eat. And if you need help, robertdothler.com, because it's written behind me the whole time, even if you're listening to this podcast. Results start when you do. God bless.